Welcome to the Love Pod, where inspiration, vision, and real connection come alive. Wherever you are, you belong here.
All right. Hello and welcome to another episode, everyone. Today, we're so honored to have Teresa Ramirez, an award-winning author, speaker, and a kindness ambassador who is helping parents raise kinder, happier, and more emotionally healthy children. Teresa believes that's something we all so deeply feel, and that's that kindness can change our world. And we believe it begins right here at home in the way we parent, the way we connect, and the way we respond to our little ones and to our lives. Her work also shows us how compassion shifts the brain, elevates serotonin and oxytocin, and creates ripple effects that can transform families, schools, and communities. We're so excited to dive into your kindness blueprint today as well, Teresa, and explore the power of small, everyday acts, and learn how kindness can be a conscious practice, especially in difficult and more challenging moments of our lives. So we're so honored to have you on the Love Pod today, Teresa. Welcome.
Well, thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
I would love to dive right in and ask you, what inspired this personal mission to help raise kinder and happier children and more compassionate communities?
Yeah, what started it was a school shooting in Parkland, Florida. And no, I didn't know anybody, but I got the nudge from God that said, we can do better. We can do better. So, okay, so I'm grieving with them, sympathizing with them. And then it occurred to me that you can change it. You can change your environment. And I kept telling the kids, go sit with that person that's alone at lunch. Somebody drops their books and their pencils, help them pick them up. How you treat each other makes a world of difference. And so that's where it started. I wanted to reduce the violence in our schools. But then when COVID hit, we all landed in front of our computers. And I realized how nasty adults were to people on social media and the things they were saying to each other. I'm like, okay, I need to get with the parents because the parents are your children's number one role model. And I did my little test. I have my test subjects, my niece and her family of 4 kids. And I said, oh, do you read your parents' social media? And they're like, yes, we do, because we don't want them posting about us. And I'm like, okay, that's logical, but they read them. And what they said was, if they say that, then we're okay to say that. So I challenged parents to say, what are you posting? Because your kids are reading, are watching. And I've decided that parents need to become the CEOs of the family and sit down and physically, intentionally say, these are the philosophies and these are the values I want to instill in my children, in my family. So that's where we all got started. I think the most fascinating thing in my start is I started to do more research on this and found that if you and I exchange an act of kindness, our serotonin, our oxytocin levels go up. Those are our happy hormones. So from one act of kindness, we have 2 happy people. But the fascinating thing is that anyone that observes that act of kindness, their happy hormones go up too. So from one act of kindness, we're spreading that ripple. We've started that ripple, and the ripple effect is real. And if we're all just focusing on our own little corner of the world, then each ripple eventually is going to merge together and create a wave of kindness that washes across the country and around the world. So there is proof. There's proof that this does something. So that's why people go, oh, well, that's all nice and fluffy. And I'm like, no, there is scientific evidence that kindness changes your brain.
Oh, I
So
believe
that's how
that.
this all got started.
I love that. And it's such an important mission to have, you know. There's so many people out there are like, "Oh, the world's going to change, but is it really true? How can we play a part in that?" And what I love about your mission is you start small right here with our corner of the world and with ourselves. Like if we
Yeah.
take example and lead by example and embody one small act of kindness, what's so beautiful about that ripple effect is it will be felt by the hearts of those who observe it, right? Because it feels good. And when those, hormone levels go up, people are going to want to do that and repeat that again. And children need this more than ever. They need us to be conscious. And, as parents and leaders, we need to show them like how this works. And they will be our future leaders, right? And so we need to set the example. And so I'm curious to know, were you already working in the school system or were you just a parent to a child who experienced that?
No, actually, no, it was all just something at the time I was caring for my aging parents. So I was running back and forth between two cities. And that just had come up. And I really felt, I truly believe that God said, we can do better, go do something. And it was started out as a nudge, but I think he then shoved and said, yes, do it, go, go, go. And so I started doing the research, talking to the kids, and then switching to parents. And now I speak to parenting groups all over the country, all over the United States at this time.
Wow, I love that you just had a nudge and intuition and you followed that and now here you are. That's
Yes,
so
yes.
that's so wonderful. I'm yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and it's just a mission that's become a mission to a lifestyle. And I think what people don't understand is it's so simple. It is so easy to do. And I try to say just to focus on your own corner because parents today, they're so busy that, their kids are in 101 activities, they have work stress, life happens. And so I don't want to overwhelm anybody. So I've kept it super simple that you can use throughout your day. Just whatever you encounter during the day. And I just had somebody I saw, I was out doing that Black Friday shopping like everybody else, and the Salvation Army was out there with their red kettles and their bell. And I saw someone, and it's cold here. It's cold in Cincinnati right now. And I saw someone take one of those kettle bell ringers, a cup of coffee. And I thought, I didn't think to do that. And I do this all the time. And I'm just thinking it was such a simple thing. They saw an opportunity to be kind and they ran with it. And that's all I'm saying. Just buy somebody a cup of coffee. It goes so far, so far.
Yeah, yes. You know what? I feel like it's also when people have that as a lifestyle, it just becomes so natural and like you say, simple to behave in a certain way that's just kind and spreading that love and that cheer and those, those good kind of feelings. But for some people, like you say, some of those children who witness their parents and observe these parents making these posts that are not so kind, they're clearly doing that unconsciously, and it's clearly become a pattern if this is the way that they've become, used to posting. And so my question to you is, what advice would you give a parent if they have the intention to want to create kinder posts and make that shift in their life to be an example for their children, but they just don't know where to start?
Again, keep it simple. Just sit down with your significant other, come up, what do you want? What philosophies do you want to instill? What environment do you want to create? And go from there. And I had one couple who did that. And then they met with they had two teenage sons in high school. And they said, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do an act of kindness a week. And then they were going to build up to making it as natural as breathing and try to do it every day. But we'll start with once a week. And I thought that's a great start, great place to start. Well, the kids said, yeah, hey, we're on board, but we want to add something. We want to remove the word hate from our vocabulary. I just thought, I was standing there at the parents going, wow, because you never know. Involve your kids. That's the whole thing. Involve your kids. Have that discussion because you never know what they're going to say. And clearly, these two boys have seen the negative aspects of using the word hate. And they wanted to just totally remove it. So they have a mason jar, And anytime anybody uses the word hate, they have to put money in. And at the end of the month, they donate that money to a charity. That's how simple it is. And yes, ask your kids, because you never know what they're going to say. And I was like, wow, I didn't see that coming. When they started talking to me, I'm like, I didn't see that coming. They said, neither did we. So that's how it starts. And I do have, and I will offer this to your audience as well. It's a 75 random acts of kindness. And it's very great. Number one is that smile and hello. And it graduates all the way to planting a tree to be kind to the planet. But never underestimate that smile and hello. And I've got a great story of someone who was a parking lot attendant, and he would greet everybody, all his regular parking people would greet them every morning. And then he went on vacation. When he came back, his regular parking people were like, where have you been? I've had the worst week, 2 weeks, whatever it was in my life. And he's like, what are y'all talking about? And they said, your smile and your good morning just set my day on a good note. And he's like, so then he comes to me and he said, you kindness lady, you always told me that it doesn't take much and that a smile has so much power and so much impact. And he said, I didn't believe it until the proof was in front of my face. So yeah, it's very simple. Keep it simple. Just whatever you're working with throughout your day.
Yeah, I think simple is key. And, you can't underestimate the power of a simple smile, a
Yes.
little smile. It's so funny because when you're expressing this and sharing this, it brings me back. I used to live in Europe, in Italy, actually, and the culture there was quite different than North American culture. Whether you get on an elevator or off an elevator, you always say hi or bye to whoever's on with you. Or if you go into a store or supermarket, again, like if there's a cashier or an assistant at the front of the store, again, you say hi. And when you leave, you say thank you, bye. It's just part of the culture, and it's the mannerisms that they grew up with that are taught that's how you behave with one another. You treat each other with kindness, and you prioritize like close relationships, and it's through our actions and our words and our behaviors. And it's so funny because, as I was mentioning too, we were living out on Vancouver Island, and on Vancouver Island it's also a little bit different culture than Ontario and the bigger cities where we are now. And you really notice the difference of like countryside like living with more friendliness and warmth between people, and the city, everyone's kind of got their blinders on and like, I got to go to my job or I got to get to my next appointment, and it's a little bit less interaction walking by one another. But it's so funny because I feel like a lot of the times people, they integrate into whatever environment they're in. So they think, okay, this is how people act here. I'm just going to go with the flow, and people don't say hi, so I won't say hi either. But if we could shift that ideology and be like, well, what if I start doing things a little bit differently? Maybe people need to hear a hi once in a while, even if they're like, whoa, why is this person speaking to me right now? It's like we can't underestimate what a simple hello or a simple smile can do to somebody, even if they don't take it, as like a nice sign. It's like they will appreciate it, or maybe they'll think about it later in their day, and maybe they'll ripple that out and eventually do it the next day to someone else. And so I find that so important, and I love that you share these kindness acts, and it can be such a simple thing.
Well, I have an idea. Why don't we challenge the audience to smile and say hello to everybody they encounter today and see how things change in their own life? I think they're going to be amazed at what happens.
I love that. Let's challenge them. If you're out today and you see someone, you walk by them, just go ahead and say a nice hello, or give them a little smile, or even like if you're at the grocery store, a lot of the times too, I feel like people try to go to the self-checkouts to avoid speaking to people. I challenge you to go through an actual cash with a person who can assist you and ask them how their day is going.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. And I have another story because you just reminded me,
Sure.
not with a cashier, but with a server in a restaurant. And people love this story. And they say I made it up, but I did not make it up. It is a true story. It really happened. I was at a friend in a restaurant, and the server, they were really busy. And the server comes up and says, what do you want? And we've got a couple questions about the menu. I don't know. I just got here. They told me to come take your order. What do you want? And my friend and I are looking at each other going, oh, this is not good. So we placed our order. The food came. It was fine. But she never came and refilled a coffee or a water, asked if everything was fine. Never saw her again till the end of the meal. And she comes by and she slams the bill on the table.
Mm.
And I thought, this is bad. This is really bad. So my friend and I sat back because we have every right to call a manager and complain. It was not good. And it was really bad, actually. And we said, and we did, we talked about it, and we finally said, I want to try something. And I want to see what happens. We paid the bill. We left her a normal tip. And then on her receipt, I put a smiley face and wrote, "You are designed to shine." Then we just gathered our stuff up, walked on out the door. Well, lo and behold, she chased us out into the parking lot. Tears.
Mm.
Thank you. I needed to hear that today. Wow. Turns on her heel, runs back in. And my friend and I get in the car and we're like, didn't see that coming. And, again, I do feel God was on my shoulder saying, no, I want you to do it this way. and yeah, you never know what someone's going through. Personal pain is as unique as a fingerprint. So always, always be kind. And I'm not saying that that's going to happen every time. Like I said, I was surprised. I'll be honest, I was surprised by her reaction. But that was early on in my journey in kindness. And that's what made me realize that we don't know what people are going through. And we have to change the way we respond to those situations.
Oh yeah, like you and your friend could have totally handled that a completely different way and wrote a nasty comment on the receipt, or you know what I mean? And instead you took it the other way, and you just gave her a little extra love, which is probably all that she needed. And I love that she came back out to the parking lot and just thanked you, because like you said, you never know what someone's going on in their personal life, what's going on in their personal lives. And the thing is, now in our world, like, so many people, they just put a mask on, they got to show up to work, this is happening at home, but they leave it there, and maybe they don't process those emotions, they just suppress them, and then they're at work trying to be all cheery and put on this mask and go through with their day and their lives. But what people also need to remember is that we're not meant to go through these hard times alone. And sometimes if we feel like we are, it's a nice reminder when you have a stranger give you just such an uplifting message to turn your day around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And again, it's so easy, and your kids are there. Remember, your kids are watching, and they're going to model your behavior. I've seen the opposite happen, where somebody's berating a server and the kid chimes in, and I'm like, are you kidding me? So you are the child's number one role model. And I know, and again, I keep it simple. I had another one where I'm in the grocery store and turn in the corner to the produce section. And there's a mom with a screaming toddler in her cart, and you can just see it on her face. Just need two things and I can get out of here. And she's trying to open that plastic produce bag. And some gentleman comes over and takes the bag and just easily opens it. The child stops crying. The weight of the world has been lifted off this woman's shoulders. And all he did was open a produce bag. Mm. It's those kind of simple acts. Look for opportunities to be kind, and you're going to find them. And it can be so simple.
I want to ask you this, Teresa. Do you think that there's a fear that people may have to be kind, and why may that be?
I think it might not be the fear of being kind, it's the fear of more like rejection. I think that comes across, I'm going to be kind to this person, but what if they react in a negative way? Mm. And my suggestion is just, what if they don't? What if they act in a positive way? Just like that server, we didn't know what was going to happen. It just, and keep in the back of your mind that you never know what somebody's going through. So always be kind, because that's going to change. Again, it changes your brain, and it will change that person's brain as well. And you just have to keep that in mind.
Yeah, that is so true. And I think also if you shift your focus and think that, I'm doing this act of kindness out of the kindness of my heart, not because I'm expecting some big, thank you or gratitude from the person who I'm giving to. If you're just simply doing it for the act of giving, then regardless how they respond, it doesn't matter, right? Because you're just
It has
doing
to
it out
come
of
from
the
the heart. It does
Ex-
have to come.
exactly. Not out of expectations or because you are a good citizen and you should do this, none of that. And so, and what you touched upon too is with the parenting and having a little one now, I realized like how much they are sponges. And it's not just about the
Mhm.
words we share, but how we are in our everyday lives, the actions that we are doing, they mirror us on so many deep, profound levels. And so I'd love to ask you, how do acts of kindness help support children's emotional regulation and their confidence?
Oh my gosh. In any numerous ways. I always suggest as your kids with the little ones, I always say, put those words in. You're important. You are amazing. You light up my life. And all those positive, that again, you're changing the philosophy. Yeah, you're just changing their brain. and they're absorbing that. Like you said, they're little sponges. So yeah, when you can do this starting at a newborn, what you are saying to them and hugging them, which I'll get in hugs in just a second, that all increases their confidence. It just always, it does. It changes again their brain. Those simple words are so powerful. I think that's the other thing people forget. Words are so powerful. So the I appreciate you. And as your kids get older too, how are you treating your significant other?
Mm,
Are you putting that little note next to that coffee mug saying you're the best?
mm,
Are you putting sticky notes in your kids' mirrors as they get older? You're awesome. You're smart. You're important. You
mm,
light up my life. All those kind of things. Um, the big math test. They've been studying all week. They're stressed out about it. Slip a little note in that backpack that says, you've got this. Those kind of things, like I said, it changes the brain and will enhance your child going forward. And you can't overdo kindness. Somebody said, well, what if you overdo? And I'm like, you make it as natural as breathing. Okay. If you're breathing, you can be kind. There's no being too kind. That doesn't, no.
mm.
I didn't understand the question and I don't understand where he was going with that. But yeah,
You,
you
you,
can never be too kind.
yeah, no, I don't, I totally agree with that. You said you were going to get into the hugs.
All the hugs. Yes. Again, there was a study done. You need 4 hugs just to survive a day. You need 8 hugs a day to maintain your status quo. And you need 12 or more to grow and thrive.
Mm,
So hug those kids every chance you get. Because as they get older, they're going to start pushing you away a little bit. But even then, if you've got teenagers that are trying to push you out, give them as much of a hug as you can and do it as often as possible.
mm. Yeah, I'm sure that that changes, everything just in a little child's world, to receive that love in a physical kind of way. And it really becomes like a lifestyle, when you're adding all this kindness in your life, it's like there's really not a lot of space to focus on the negative stuff anymore.
No, it's exactly. And then you start to see opportunities to be kind. Of course, I missed it with the Salvation Army, but someone else picked it up, which is good. But yeah, you start to see those opportunities. And I wonder, I don't know if it made the news where you are, but it's been a couple weeks ago where a gang of kids attacked a mom who was going to walk her kids home from school. And it was in Chicago, I believe. And I think, what environment were those kids living in? What
Mm,
example are those parents showing those kids that it was so bad that they had to attack a woman who had a physical disability, and was just going to walk her kids home because they say more walking helps her with her disability. And I'm just like, what environment? I really was struggling with that one because I just kept saying, yes, They should not have done that. And everybody was, well, you're worried about the bully. And I said, it's not that I'm worried about the bully. It's that I feel for the environment they're growing up in. What example are their parents setting for them? And, obviously, negative does birth negative. But if we're being kind and positive, that's the environment you want to create. And that's the ripple that happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think it may not be so easy, but to also have compassion in those situations and just send those children and those family loving thoughts and prayers because they probably need it during these times. Um, yeah, and also realizing that they also have the opportunity to change, but they also need to
Yes.
take that first step, right? Because we cannot do the work for them. We can be an inspiration to them and show them by example, but everyone needs to want it for themselves.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm curious to know when you go to do talks with parents and at schools, like is the blueprint, the kindness blueprint, the program that you offer, can we dive more into what this is?
Sure, sure. And it is, again, it's very simple process. And it starts out with that smile and hello and the ease and graduates to now we're going to get the soccer team involved or the band involved. And we're going to do non-perishable food drives for the food banks, or we're going to do new socks for the homeless, that kind of drive. Then you organize that kindness act, especially this time of year. And then it goes into the payoff, what I call the payoff. And that is your children it's going to be easier for them and you to be kind in those awkward, sticky situations. And again, the power of words comes out. But how, like I did with the woman, the server, I changed the perception.
Mm.
She really wasn't mad at us. It's whatever happened before she left the house. And I thought about this afterwards, of course, but um, when I just used words to change her day, and those positive words with your child, it's all about how you're speaking to them and they're absorbing that. So you want to change your perception that they're really 9 times out of 10, they're not really mad at you. They're mad at something that happened this morning, last week, 6 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And how you respond to that with your words makes all the difference. The other thing is humor.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a road rage situation actually, where I was pulling off an exit ramp and the red light was there and we're waiting in line, waiting for the light to change. The guy in front of me gets out of his car and he is yelling and screaming. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I'm like, what am I going to do? And I mean, I can't go anywhere. So I looked around and don't ask me why I had this, but I did. And I put on and just waved. He couldn't stop fast enough. And I do wonder today what he thought, what he told people about the lady with the red clown nose. But use humor. I can't tell a joke to save my life, but I can use props. But if you can tell a joke to diffuse the situation, go for it. Just
Mm.
rattle them off. That stopped a road rage situation. Silly little clown nose stopped a road rage situation. And your 15-year-old who's sitting next to you in the car is watching that because he's going to be driving in a few short months. And I think about that because there was another story, which I think was a few weeks ago in Nevada. And there was a road rage situation. The dad was taking the child to school and the 11-year-old was sitting in the back seat. Well, whatever happened, dad and another driver started the road rage thing and they're messing with cars. The other driver pulled a gun, shot, hit the kid and killed him. Like,
Oh my gosh.
so road rage is a big thing for me. um, I, I did a 21-day kindness challenge once and I said, one of the days was you not to have road rage today. That was the challenge. And everybody's like, what are you talking about? Those idiots cut me off. I have every right to yell and scream. And I'm like, no, And here's a perfect example. Why? Someone died. And somebody said like 47% of car accidents are because of road rage. So let's take this back. I know I loved my horn, used it all the time. So I put a big sticky note and said stop. So I don't use my horn anymore. And if you've got to do that and have sticky notes all over your dashboard, go for it. Put something on your phone that pops up while you're driving to remind you not to take it down. Okay, so he cut you off. Did it really delay your trip more than 1 second? Probably not. You just, and 9 times, like my situation, I had no idea what I did and why that man was so mad at me. I had no clue what I did. That's the case in a lot of road rage situations. They didn't realize they cut you off or whatever the situation was.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it goes back to we're now making kindness as natural as breathing. So we're in those awkward road rage situations. How are you going to react? And one of the ways is you can just let it go. Humor saved me. Those kind of things, put the sticky notes down. That's how you're going to react. And then the other way I say to how to react in some situations are so volatile. It doesn't matter what you say, what you do. You just got to walk away. You just have to walk away. If you have to address it, if it was a serious enough situation that you do a concern, you have to address back an hour or two later when everybody's calmed down. And you want to have those conversations, and you can say things like, yeah, let's agree to disagree. Thank you for your opinion. I'll give it some thought. All, all those things. Just because you were invited to an argument doesn't mean you have to attend. And that was W.C. Fields said that. So keep that in mind. I don't have to engage in this argument. So, and I know, and if you're in a family, because we just had this big conversation here in the States, because Thanksgiving just happened, talking politics over a dinner table when half the family doesn't agree with you. Why? Don't bring it up. Don't bring it up. And I do know a family that says, no, we're that politics is a subject we're not allowed to talk about. That's just, you can know about anything else. And there's 101 other conversations, topics you can have. But yeah, those kind of things. Why bring up subject that is going to start something? Start.
Mm.
And again, it's how we respond in those situations.
Yeah, thank
And if
you.
you're practicing kindness, making it as natural as breathing, it's going to be so much easier to respond in a kind manner.
Yeah, those are some great tips. I really love how in the beginning you spoke about some of the examples of, acts of kindness. And it starts here with the self, but then it really extends out to the family and the larger community. And I love that because then you're inviting everyone into this circle of kindness and you share in different kinds of ways. And, maybe you share in a different way than your neighbor, but like doing it together, it just makes the whole community richer, and yeah, and it gives people purpose as well, which it adds fulfilling meaning to your lives as well. And so you have your three core tips. You spoke about changing the way you look at things, so shifting your perspective, adding humor, which I believe as well is such a powerful disruptor, and it's so awesome, to add this into our lives. And you're speaking about road rage, and it's such a common thing that people have. And what's so funny about it though is like speaking from personal experience too, is the more that you have it, I feel the more you attract it when you're on the road. And if you can kind of take a step back and like you said, whether it's putting a sticky note on your horn and saying do not beep, but also just kind of like coming back to yourself and maybe like everything outside your car window, looking at it like a movie, like not trying to change it, but just let it play out in front of you. Like this is the way that I'm thinking to explain it, and just not trying to control it, but just let it take place and observe, witness it. And then you try to stay, connected to your breath, connected to your heart, and still and calm and peaceful. But then you'll notice how quickly it's going to go as fast as it came. And then the more that you can have that approach to road rage, I feel like the less it will appear when you're on the road, right? Because you're not reacting. Like you said, you have the power and the choice to react or to not react. That really, things can happen outside of us all the time, but we have the control and the power to choose how we react to things happening in our lives. Negative things can happen to us every day, but if we choose to have a negative response, then it's not going to really make the situation any better. And I think the third tip that you had, the non-engagement, is such a powerful one as well, because there's so many people who have this mentality like, I can't walk away unless I'm proven that I'm right, and I prove it to the other people, and they accept my side of the argument. But how can you explain to people, like, if they were to walk away, that is more important, and it can even encourage connection down the road, rather than staying in an argument where they need to be proven that they're right.
Yeah, I think that's one of the points I make too, that you brought that up. What's more important? To be right, to be kind. And that's what when people say that, but I'm right. And I said, what's more important? What kind of environment are you creating? In that case, sometimes there are some tough topics and it's a concern, it's an issue you have to talk through, but you're not going to solve anything yelling and screaming at each other. It's just not going to work. So how do you want to resolve the issue is another question I ask. And I know I had one person that just kind of stopped and said, but he wanted to say no, he didn't want to, he'd rather be right. But he didn't want to say that to me, to my face. And he said, well, and it was just kind of funny. But I always go back to what's more important, and your kids are watching. So how you resolve this, that's how your child is going to learn how to resolve things. And you can if you've got to step back, you've got an issue, you have to resolve it. It's getting heated, and you step back, 30 minutes. Doesn't even have to be that long. Come back with cooler heads, have a cup of coffee, whatever, and sit down. Okay, cooler heads, and then go back to the facts. The issue is 1, 2, 3. Okay, let's look at ways to resolve it and go from there. But yeah, it is kind of interesting. I just go back to that man because he just wanted to say, be right, but he didn't want to say that to my face.
Oh, I love all the interesting stories that you're sharing with us today. I'd love to ask you personally, when you're having a tough day, what helps you to reconnect to kindness?
Well, with me, I walk. I am blessed with park behind me with lots of trails, and the bike trail, it connects to a bike trail. So walking is one of those things. But like today, it's really cold and I don't want to do that. So I have a dog and a cat, and I just use those to pet them, snuggle with them. And it makes all the difference in the world when I'm having a tough one. And of course, I've mentioned before, I'll pray about it. Just, God is my anchor, and I use him frequently.
I love that. And it's so awesome to have animals in the household too, because they are such great examples of unconditional love.
Yes, they are. They are. They're the best.
So, if every family were to take on this challenge and perhaps practice one act of kindness a day, how would you see our world changing?
Oh my gosh. It goes back to the studies I've talked about in the beginning, and creating that ripple effect. It is a real thing, and it does change your brains and how it works. And if we're all happy, we're not going to be shooting people over road rage or attacking someone just because they're weaker than we are. We're going to be lifting each other up. And it would make, my gosh, it would be just amazing. That everybody was looking for acts to be kind. Everyone was lifting each other up. There would be less depression. because it does change the philosophy of your brain. There would be less anxiety. All those things would go. There would be less violence in our schools, which is my main goal. It happens, and you can see it happen. And I know another story about schools, the local school here, because that school really is into the kindness and into open communication with parents. There was a child A was talking to child B, and child B was started to talk about how unhappy he was and how he was going to take it out on the school at some point. And he would go on, and he only confided in child A. He never said anything to anybody else. So child A went home and talked to dad, and dad said, we got to get to the school. So the first thing the next morning, dad called the principal and said, this is going down, and went back to child B and got him help, because he was truly, and the parents had been trying to help, but hadn't found the right path yet. And so the school intervened, and together, the school, the parents, the child, and they got the counselor involved and got him help. He did need it. But that's where open communication with your child, open communication with the school saved what could have been an incident. And because the kids have been taught to be kind, they picked up on, oh, this isn't right. And they had no fear going to your parents to say, hey, this is what we heard. And that's something else, communication between your child and your parents. I say, check in with your kid. And I have 3 questions I suggest you ask. Do it over the dinner table while you're running to their 101 activities. I had the best conversations with my kids in the car. So what was the best thing that happened to you today? What was the thing that wasn't so great that upset you today? And my favorite question is, what made you laugh today? And that just keeps the conversation going. It checks in, gives you an idea of what's going on in your child's life, how things are going. If your child's not laughing 2,000 times a day, there's something wrong. Kids should be laughing all the time. And then the bonus question, if you get to that, what choices did you make today? Did you make good choices today? And if so, what were they? Did you make bad choices? And what were they? And that helps them develop that critical thinking. But I put that as the bonus. But start with the 3 questions, and if things are going well, you can go into the bonus questions.
I love that. Yeah, I love that you really emphasize on connecting deeper with children through that conscious communication. And it brings a smile to my face, because a favorite question that my partner and I love to ask one another at the end of the day is, what was your favorite part about today? And even if we've had like a rough day or more of an emotional day, we still love to ask that question, because then it really encourages us to go deeper within and look for something positive throughout our day. And even just outside of asking it with our family and our children, I love asking strangers that question. Like if I'm at a store and the other week I was at a service office renewing one of my cards, and the person assisting me was a little bit down in the dumps. And, I asked her, I'm like, what was your favorite part about today? And, sometimes it's a little bit intimidating asking a stranger this question. And especially if you know that probably they're not having the best kind of day, but it really can help them as well, go within and be like, okay, like despite all the things happening today, I am grateful for this. And, it really, it's a game changer, because it allows us to, be grateful for the good things. But then I also love that one of your second question was what was not such a great thing that happened today. And then, you don't dismiss that, because you realize that days are not perfect. Good things happen, bad things happen, and that's okay too. And if we can learn to teach our children to accept all that happens in our days, then really it's such a beautiful skill to have, because you're not judging this as good and this as bad. You're learning that it feels good when good things happen, but sometimes bad things happen too. And that's such an important skill, because life is not all rainbow and waterfalls, as much as we would love that. Sometimes we do have bad days, and that's okay too. And as much as children should be laughing all day, I think it's also important that sometimes they cry, especially when they're little, and that's okay too. Crying is not a bad thing. That's how they process their emotions. And the more that parents can be okay and hold safe spaces for when their children are emoting, I think the better off those children are going to be growing up. And go ahead.
I was going to say absolutely. And I love that you asked somebody else. That's a great idea. But one of the other things I suggest to parents is at the end of the day, when it's nice and quiet, have their kids write down what they're grateful for. Just 5 things. Start with 5 things. And then it grows the more you get in the practice of looking to things to be grateful for. And, and they're funny. They're like, I don't know. Where do I start? I said, do you have a roof over your head? Starting with the basics. Do you have heat? Right now, that's really important to me.
There's so much.
Start with the basics, but then they get the idea and they start to see how much you have to be thankful.
Absolutely. And you can even make an activity out of it and maybe grow it on your wall and put it on some colorful sticky notes. And every night you stick them on your wall, or you have a little gratitude basket or box. And you can see how that grows over time. There's infinite things to be grateful for. And speaking of these practices, I feel like there's something missing in the school system. I love that you're doing this work and that you're going, and sharing this with parents and teachers. But why do you think it's not more spoken about, like the science of kindness in parenting spaces and in our school systems?
I think they need to do something. But there are programs out there for schools, but not every school is embracing it. I know that, and I've actually talked to 2 college professors that tried a kindness class, science of kindness, in the different colleges. So they said some worked well and some didn't. So I think they're still testing the waters to find out what's the best way to do it. But like I told you, my test subject family, their school, they reward kids. The teachers catch them being kind, and they get these little stickers. And when you get so many stickers, you get a prize. So it incentivizes. And this program, I love this program, where they're a buddy to a child with some kind of disability. And it was funny. I was driving them somewhere for their mom, and they said, "We can't wait. Next quarter, in January, we get to be ambassadors to those kids." And she said, "That's our chance. We get to do that." And I'm like, "Thank you to do that. That's what we want to hear. That's what we want to hear." I've had another story. He was a 6th grader who, in the cafeteria, there's a child in a wheelchair. Couldn't push the wheelchair and carry the cafeteria tray. So he went over and said, "Here, I'll get that for you. Where do you want to sit?" And the kid kind of shrugged. He goes, "Well, come sit with us." And he was my nephew. He is an athlete, and most of his friends are athletes. The kid in the wheelchair knows every sports statistic out there. They had a great 2 or 3 years, however long they were together. But he would never have gotten to know that kid had he not reached out with an act of kindness. And that comes from, again, he was being kind and mom and dad weren't watching. And that's what you want for your kids. You want them to be doing good things when you're not looking.
Yeah, totally. And that's why this brings up to I have another question, but I'm going to come back to it. But, speaking about the incentive, method you had just mentioned with the teachers, how can we teach like authentic kindness? And I'm not saying this is what they're doing, but I want to distinguish the difference. How can we teach authentic kindness versus performative niceness?
Yes. And what was the difference? I used to know I used to have the definition down like that.
That's okay.
The kindness, you're lifting people. Nice is almost gives you that people pleaser.
Yes.
I'm just doing it to please everybody. It's not my heart. That's the big difference. Kindness, you're lifting people up. It comes from the heart.
Exactly.
Nice is that people pleaser. I'm doing it just to make them happy. It doesn't really come from the heart when you do that.
Totally.
And like I said, the kids get excited that, this is elementary school. So yeah, it's teaching them to be kind. And again, I think it makes it as natural as breathing. It's getting them into that habit.
Yeah, and the more you do it, the more you probably notice it as well. So this is the other thing it made me think about is that, um, I think of it as the car effect. Like whenever you purchase a certain color of a vehicle, when you're on the road with it, you start to notice more of that color and more of that brand of vehicle, right? Because now it's in your immediate environment and you're driving it every day. And this makes me think too of like when we're being kind, I always love to put myself in the other person's shoes and think about how they're on the receiving end. Like it made me think when I became a new mom and I was pushing my baby everywhere in a stroller, how nice it was for someone to open a door for me because that's challenging sometimes, especially when
Yes.
there's no automatic button. And so when someone would do that for me, I would just feel so grateful. And now, anytime that I see a mom with babies or a stroller or even an elder who needs help, I run straight to the door and I open it to them. But it's also because I've been on the other end and I know how nice it is to receive.
Yes. Yeah. And the other thing with the baby stroller, because I've seen this, is if you're in an apartment or you're somewhere where there's stairs,
Yeah.
you got to get the stroller up. This helping that person with that stroller is huge.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. And yeah, I want to ask you too, like, do you have a community where people can, gather online or, connect with you?
Yes. Journeyandkindness.com is my website, and you can just hit that contact button, and I respond to everyone.
Wonderful. I also have your links posted in the show notes so people can
Okay.
click on them directly, Teresa. And I'd love to leave you with this last question. It's something we love to ask all of our listeners. If a megaphone were to drop right in front of you and you can offer one message for the whole world, what would it be?
Personal pain is as unique as a fingerprint. You never know what someone is going through. So always, always be kind.
Hmm, I love that. So simple and so pure. All right. Is there anything else that you would love to leave with our listeners today?
No, no, I just wanted to thank you so much for having me. I've loved our conversation.
As did I. And thank you so much for your devotion to creating a kinder world. Your message is such a powerful reminder that compassion isn't just an idea, but it's something that we practice. And it does, in fact, and indeed ripple outward through our families and our communities. So continue being kind, accept the challenges that we gave today, have a smile on your face. Even if you don't feel like smiling, it could change somebody's life. And yeah, we're just so grateful for the work that you're doing, Teresa, and the movement that you're building. It's so needed in our world today. And to everyone who's listening, may this conversation bring you kindness in the small moments because every little act truly makes a difference.
Thanks for watching. You say ciao ciao.
Bye.
I love you so much.